Joel Patterson is a workplace expert. He's founder of the Vested Group. This is a business always atop the best places to work list. Joel, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Gail. Always good to be here.
Certainly appreciate your taking the time. So I've got like 3 dueling surveys I wanted to work through with you this morning. So let's talk about the fact that workers are kind of staking their claims, saying 1 in 4 saying, you know what, I've had enough. I'm going to quit my job, do something else after the pandemic. Why is this happening now?
Well, I think there's quite a few different reasons, but I think a lot of it is just people really hunkered down for the last year, weren't going to make too many changes. And the interesting thing is that as the economy has kind of opened up, workers are looking around and recognizing that there is an opportunity to maybe completely change the game, in that maybe work from home, maybe work for companies that are in a different region than what they typically are in. There's just a lot of different options, maybe not a lot more options, because, unemployment's still pretty high in comparison, but there are a lot of new ways to look at how you manage your day-to-day, what your working environment might be. Pay is certainly something that is a lot more variable right now than it was before the pandemic. So people, if they're looking for a reason, they can definitely find a reason these days to at least look around and see what else is out there.
Maybe to explore. I mean, we've had a lot of time to think over the past 13 or 14 months. Maybe to explore other employment avenues, maybe turning an avocation into their vocation.
Yeah, for sure. I think for the people that took the time that they had last year to really upskill in some way, maybe they got some education or some additional training, they're clearly looking to leverage that now. I think that's one component of people that are looking around. There's another that just people that were planning on leaving anyway, just kind of natural attrition. I think it's opened up enough now where they feel comfortable to go ahead and make that move when they were considering it a year ago, and it didn't make a lot of sense. And then the other thing that really, to me, is the biggest issue that we have not solved is how you manage a company culture through where we are these days. Before the pandemic, you had your eyes on people and you could see them develop relationships. And it's not this isn't an indictment of productivity, because productivity is something that has managed to stay up. But how you maintain the rapport, the relationships that people have with their colleagues, I mean, that's really what drives the culture at the end of the day. It's that personality of the organization. And that is really difficult to maintain and create for new hires when you're just seeing them on a Zoom call. So we'll have to figure that out at some point soon to make sure that you don't have just complete culture decay.
Oh, Zoom. Yes, and the filters and the chicken. And what about Zoom fatigue? Right, you're not a cat. Yes, that's right. But what about Zoom calls that have become the new normal throughout the pandemic? Is that something you think will continue?
It'll definitely continue. The technology has held up. Now, whether or not it continues in the same way that it is now remains to be seen, but I don't think there's any question that it's here to stay. I think that what we've got to get better at is having a hybrid of Zoom or video conference with in-person. The Zoom fatigue concept is real. Everybody that spends their day in back-to-back Zoom calls can attest to that. I mean, if you don't have breaks in between those calls, you don't realize how much more your brain is working. A simple example I always tell people is, imagine if you were in person and you were sitting 18 inches from that person across the table and looking at them. And that's really kind of what's going on in the middle of those calls. It's not natural. And so you spend all that time looking at people or looking at yourself, and your brain is just continuing to do things when it should be focused on whatever the task is at hand. And that's why you get out of these calls and you're actually more tired than you are when you do them in person. So, try and find ways to limit those calls. I mean, they're productive, but I'm even finding less and less people turning on their video during those calls. So I don't know if it's bad or if they just want the privacy, but it's here to stay. Maybe not exactly the way it is now, but we're gonna be getting used to it for a long, long time.
Well, then I found this interesting because, I often ask the question, is correlation causation? But there was that study out that says, we have been mindlessly staring into our, we're paying full and complete attention. That's right, during those Zoom meetings. But we're mindlessly staring at our laptops, our computer screens, and we're actually translating that into our driving skills or lack thereof. I mean, there is some correlation between the impact psychologically that Zoom meetings have had on us and actually getting behind the wheel real time and seeing the windshield just as another big screen.
Yeah, it's a really interesting concept. I remember when I was learning to drive in the driver's ed class, I think they called that highway hypnosis. And that was a risk back then. But now, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think I'm just as guilty as anyone. You get used to having 18 different things going on at once. It's hard not to turn that off.